Well, for those who are unaware, Israel went to Bahrain today to sign a formal peace agreement with the Gulf state. And at the same time, the UAE and Israel agreed upon 28 weekly direct flights between the two nations. In fact, in one media site, this is kind of strange that they said this, but in one media site it said that the title is "Today we are one family, the family of the sons of Abraham." And that was the statement that was made after Israel and Bahrain delegation had signed this peace agreement. And from what I hear, pressure on Sudan is going to bring them to the table next. And when I say pressure, I mean the United States is applying a ton of pressure on different nations to come to the table, including the Palestinians. In fact, it's being reported that the Arab nations are now feeling the pressure and have been convinced to cut off the Palestinians' financial support. And I believe that is a major development because that's frankly the only way they can survive. And more nations are feeling the pressure of the United States, and some are just outright tired of seeing the Palestinians get opportunity after opportunity, only to decide that they don't want to take the opportunity but would rather live on the free handouts from other nations. But that not only applies to the PA in the West Bank, but also Hamas. And this is what's being reported out of the Jewish News Syndicate. It says that Arab states have stopped giving money to the Palestinian Authority due to U.S. pressure, Deputy Hamas leader said on Friday. The Deputy Hamas leader's comments were aired by Hamas-run Alexa TV as a rocket fired from Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip landed in an open field in Israel. There are Arab countries that froze their commitments to the Palestinian people, whether via the PA or PLO, because of an American decision. To be clear, an American decision. They came to our brothers in the PA and told them, "We won't pay you a thing after today." He also added that the United States had also severed its monetary aid to the UNRWA, the United Nations Relief Agency for Palestinian Refugees, and has asked other countries to do the same. And of course, Hamas is placing all the blame on Israel, and will continue probably to send rockets over to Israel, and there will be a retaliation, of course, but it would be nice if, in fact, the United States was successful in cutting off Hamas's financial support. Now, later in the article, it claims that, of course, they would never bow to this, and that Hamas would continue to fight until the very end, with or without the support. But frankly, I can't see how that they can survive, because that's really all they've ever known. But he goes on to say, it says, even when the international community discusses a Palestinian state within 67 borders, with the capital in Jerusalem, the occupation, or Israel, doesn't want to commit to that. Israel wants a resolution that establishes its control of Jerusalem, and particularly the West Bank. The Palestinian residents there won't have sovereign citizens' rights, rather merely rights as residents. The Trump administration stupidly and insanely rushed to implement this vision. The administration pressured countries across the globe to move their embassies there as well, he added. The United States had also sponsored the Abraham Accords between Israel and the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, while skipping over the Palestinian issue, and had applied immense pressure on Arab states in this regard, he said. So you can expect further pressure, and maybe more intense pressure. Not only will the United States continue to not finance the Palestinians, but I believe that more and more Arab and also European countries and others, as far as that's concerned, are going to begin to cut off the Palestinians, and they're going to be forced to come back to the table. In fact, even the European Union is beginning to see the handwriting on the wall that the Palestinians need to come back to the peace table and take a hard look at what it's going to look like with Israel in the Middle East. Now, like I said, I do believe that the Palestinians in the West Bank will someday come back to the table. It's hard to say what's going to happen to Hamas. They seem to be rebellious still, and they don't look like they're in any hurry to try to become a peaceful, friendly neighbor of Israel's. And it's going to be interesting to see exactly how they turn out and what their options are once everyone begins to come together for this peace with many. And there's talk in the wind that it's possible that even Lebanon could be searching for a way to make peace with Israel. In fact, right now they're in talks, but the talks that they're in right now are regarding their boundaries with Israel, regarding the Mediterranean Sea and any potential oil or natural gas that may be found in that area. But I can tell you right now that peace accord or that peace negotiation would not take place unless they had the blessing of Syria and likely the blessing of Iran. And as I've reported in the past, that Syria was looking for a back door into this peace process with Israel. And that kind of puts Iran in a sticky place, even though I believe that there's just no way that there could be peace between Israel and Syria unless Iran in some way blessed it. A lot of this is going to go down after the election. President Trump is able to win a second term. That is going to say a lot as to where the peace process is going to head, because let's face it, he's got 4 more years. And 4 more years of pressure toward Iran and the PLO is probably going to be more than they can bear. Certainly they put on a strong front, but the bottom line is the money's running out. So it wouldn't shock me a bit if, in fact, President Trump was saying that if he gets reelected, he'll have a peace agreement with Iran within 30 days. Now, of course, he's talking about, when he said 30 days, he's probably talking about his new term, which starts in January. But either way, it's going to be soon, he's saying. But I believe that this constant pressure campaign that the Trump administration has placed upon the Arab world, and likely the European Union as well, is going to bring about some type of peace in the very near future. As I've said in the past, I'm still a proponent of Psalm 90:10, which states that a generation is 70 years plus 10 with strength. And if that's the case from 1948 to 2028, that would be 80 years. You'd have to subtract 7 years for the tribulation period. That would come to 2021. And as you know, we're only months away from the start of 2021. Now, certainly that's not a prophecy that I'm trying to push, but more of a speculation, because never in the Bible does it specify what the last days length of years for the last generation is. We simply don't know how long it will be, but that would be a good place to start, in my opinion. But this maximum pressure campaign is working, in my opinion, and I believe it's going to be notched up to a new level come Trump's second term. So there's 2 things that we need to take with us. Number 1, the pressure campaign upon the Palestinians and the Arab world not to finance the Palestinians is definitely working. They're going to have to make a decision or go broke. Number 2, we are seeing a lot of nations, I should say unexpected nations, such as Syria, Lebanon, and really maybe possibly Iran, who are showing covert signs that they very well may want to come to some type of peaceful arrangement, or maybe even normalization of ties with Israel. Now, of course, Iran is not to be trusted, but you think Israel would know that. But Ezekiel 38 indicates that it's kind of a surprise that Russia, Turkey, and Iran are on Israel's northern border ready to attack them. Now, the surprise may be that Russia's there and is leading the pack of this group of nations. But as it appears right now, even if it's a false type of peace, it looks like there is some type of a desire for these unexpected nations to come to terms with Israel. We'll have to wait and see. Keep an eye on Lebanon. And like I said, if Lebanon falls and becomes a peace partner to Israel, don't be surprised if Syria follows suit. And I believe if Iran is going to come to terms and have peace with Israel, it's probably going to be through the United States. And the United States is probably going to have the help of the EU and Russia to make this happen. So keep an eye on these different scenarios. And of course, if you don't know the Lord, today is the day of salvation. Don't put it off. 150,000 people are going to die today. The Bible says that the vast majority are going to end up in a burning hell. Don't let that happen to you. Come to the Lord, allow Him to save you, and from this day forward, live for Him. And you that are Christians, you need a copy of my Tribulation Period Survival Guide. Your time is running short as well. If your goal is to get this book in everyone's hand that you need to get going. Time is running out. Like I said, I haven't done it in a while, but There was a time that I was passing these books out like tracts. And the good thing about this book is that it presents to you the plan of salvation. So in reading this book, they could come to the Lord before the rapture takes place and before the tribulation period begins. And frankly, isn't that our goal? So I'd encourage you to go down to the description section of this video, get your copy, click on the link, and either get the free copy or get the paid version, which is paperback version, and get it in the hands of your friends and loved ones. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.